This video covers notes 5.1 on identifying key features of linear functions. So linear functions have multiple features that we can identify. The x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis, and it's always written as a number in the x spot and 0 in the y spot, because the x-axis is where y equals 0. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. This one is written similarly, but flipped. So this time, the y-axis is where x equals 0, and you write a number in the y spot instead. Now 0 is the same thing as an x-intercept, but written as an x value only. So you only write the x, not the point, like you do for the intercepts. Slope is the change in y over the change in x. We often say rise over run value from one point to the next. It could be written as the letter m and can be represented as a number or a fraction. It can be represented as either of those two things. So using the graph to the right, identify the key features. These have been done for us, so I'm going to highlight what they were looking at. So the x-intercept is listed at 3, 0. It crosses the x-intercept at 3. Keep in mind, the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis, and the x-axis is the one that goes horizontally. It crosses here at 3, so we write that as a point. You cannot just write the number 3. It will be wrong. So you write it as the number that it crosses the x-axis, comma 0 for the point. Now to skip the y-intercept for a second, the 0 is also the same number as your x-intercept, but remember it's just listed as the number, as that x value. So 0 and x-intercept are very similar, but you don't write the 0 as a point. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. We can see it crosses the y at -2. So the y-intercept has the number in the y spot, and then everything else is a 0 because we do need to write it as a point. Then to find your slope, you go from one point to the next. To get there, we go rise, so we go up 2, over run, so we run 3. So slope is 2/3, so we go up 2 and to the right 3. For slope, you can think about a hotel or anywhere that has an elevator. Let's say sorry, I should have drawn that the other way. Let's say this is the Hilton in town, or anywhere you can think of that you've ever been that has an elevator. So let's say I'm here and I want to get to my friend up here. Well, I can't just walk over here and then jump up to the 4th floor. No. In order for me to get there, up to here, I have to get in the elevator first and go up the elevator, get off at their floor, and then walk over there. Slope does the same thing. You have to get in the elevator and go up or down first before you can get off on the floor and walk side to side. Excuse me. Now, once we've identified our slope and our y-intercept, we can use those to write the linear function for that line. So we're going to identify some key features and write this equation. So my x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. It crosses the x-axis over here at -5. So remember, we write it as a point, -5, comma 0. The other letter, so if I'm looking for the x-intercept, it goes in that x spot. The other letter is always 0. And then to write my 0, I take that x value and rewrite. The y-intercept is where that graph crosses the y-axis. This crosses y at a +2, and we write it as the point 0, 2. And we don't do anything else with that. Now slope, I can go from my x-axis to my y-axis. Remember, I have to get in the elevator and go up first. Then I can get out and walk 5 steps, 5 rooms, however you want to think about it. So my slope is up 2 to the right 5. So to write my equation in slope-intercept form, I'm going to put the slope with x. Sorry, that's not a negative. Put the slope with x, and the y-intercept is listed after. So if you notice, up at the top for the features, the x-intercept and the 0 are very similar, but the pieces that we don't rewrite are the pieces that are listed in my slope-intercept form. So it's always listed on your formula chart. It's listed as mx plus b, where m is your slope. You need to write this down if you're not. And b is your y-intercept. So my slope is how I go from one point to the other. My y-intercept, that b value, is where I start on the y-axis. So on the back, this one has a lot less info, but they're still wanting us to find the same things. So my x-intercept, where it crosses the x-axis crosses at -4. My y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, is a +2. Remember that my 0 is the same thing as the x value, so that's the same thing as -4. And then my slope, I'm going to go from one point to the other. Now, I can choose the 2 that I've circled for my intercepts. I can also choose 2 that are right next to each other, but we're always going to go from the left point to the right point. It doesn't matter which 2 points you want to pick, but I would recommend picking 2 that are right next to each other. Otherwise, you're going to have to reduce a lot. Now, when I go up, I need you to be careful here. This is from 1 to 2, so that is a jump of 1. I went up 1 floor. However, when I jump over here, this is from -2 to 0. So even though I'm only jumping 1 line right here, it really does a jump of 2. So we go from -2 to -1, -1 to 0. So it really jumps 2. If that's hard for you to think about, pick 2 points that are in the positives because those are a little bit easier, positive numbers. So from 3 to 4, if I look on this axis, I'm going from 3 to 4, which is a jump of 1. To get here, I'm going from 2 to 4, which is a jump of 2. So my slope is up 1 over 2. So sometimes our slope or our y-intercept, they're not always on the lines, or the lines don't always represent a jump of 1. This one, the x's jump by 2, so you need to make sure you watch those lines, okay? Now to write my equation in slope-intercept form, y equals slope times x, 1/2 x, plus my y-intercept of 2. This last part, you're supposed to work with someone. If you're watching this video on your own, you can come up with your own way. But come up with a way to remember what 0 means. So how you will remember that 0 means to cross the x-axis, and you are supposed to list that here.